Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey. And you're probably wondering what this is here. It is a miniature version of, my pronunciation hopefully is correct, Quick. It is a drinking vessel from Scotland, traditional drinking vessel from Scotland. When greeting someone, and it can be held like so. You could pour a scotch or, some kind of spirit into this, and it's kind of a welcoming vessel. But anyways, I just thought, let's put it here and let's give ourselves a feel of Scotland here, because we have Scottish weather outside. Here on the coast of British Columbia on Vancouver Island. What am I reviewing? Well, I had reviewed Tobermory Ledaig last time. It was the 18-year-old, I believe, and that was my last review. And I'd like to continue on with the Isle of Mull and continue on with the non-peated whiskey. We did the peated, now we are going to get into the non-peated. This is Tobermory. And we know the distillery spends half the year producing peated and the other half the year producing this, which is a 21-year-old Tobermory. I believe it's finished in an Oloroso. The other peated version is right here. And that was the Ledaig 18 that I did in my last review. So, I do have a presentation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the distillery other than, for gosh sakes, if you're in Oban, jump on a ferry from Oban to Cragnier. It's about an hour, around an hour crossing. And then if you're taking your vehicle, it's about a 35-minute drive from Cragnier to the north end of the Isle of Mull to Tobermory, which is the largest community on the Isle of Mull. I believe it's about an hour by bus, and there is a regular bus schedule that runs out of Cragnier. It is well worth it. I will be back there this year. We're on the Isle of Mull. One distillery that produces scotch. We do have another distillery that produces gin, and so does this distillery. But anyways, let's get into this. This was a gift from my son. And 21-year-old Tobermory. I think I better take it up there and show you the bottle. Natural color. And I believe this is 46.3% unchill filtered. Nice color to it. You notice it did have a little bit of a darker color. So we're going to get right into this Tobermory. And we're going to open it up. And I just happen to have one of my Trudeau glasses there. My Glencairns are in the other room, and I'm not going to go grab one. So we will peel this label on the 21. Tobermory, 21-year-old, finished in Oloroso. Now, my understanding is, I believe, 7 years. I think the first years are in bourbon cask, and then the final 7 are in an Oloroso cask. That's my understanding. Let's give it a pour. And let's bring it up. By the way, I noticed when I was carrying this up there, there was a waft of fruit and whatever came at me. It was like I had a bowl of fruit. Kind of mention that, the ladies that run the distillery. I do have to mention that. So we have 2 ladies. We've got Julian Fernandez, who is the master distiller. And we have a new manager, and that's Cara Gilbert. She's quite young, but she's very, very qualified. And she might be one of the youngest distillery managers in Scotland. But well, we're going to let this sit for at least a half an hour. So you can scroll ahead to watch the review, or we'll see you after the presentation. The Isle of Mull is steeped deep in history, where there are 4,000-year-old remnants from its early inhabitants. The rock structures, standing stones, and burial cairns are still visible today. In 563 AD, St. Columba, an Irish missionary, arrived on Iona Island, a half-mile off the south coast of Mull. He founded a monastery and started evangelizing that region of Scotland. The Viking raids and then the clan wars meant that many castles were to be built by the powerful clan chiefs of the MacDougals, the MacDonalds, the Macleans, and the Campbells. These old castles are still visible ruins, and some are still standing today. Then there is the darker history of Mull, the clearances, where the powerful landowners booted the tenant families off the land and replaced them with sheep. The colourful and picturesque town of Tobermory was founded as a fishing port in 1788 by the British Fisheries Society. 10 years later, in 1798, John Sinclair, a soda ash merchant, started Ledaig Distillery. It wasn't until 1823 that he took out a legal license. Records show that in 1821 it produced 6,700 gallons of spirit, but by 1837 it had ceased operation and was up for sale. After sitting idle for 40 years, Dr. Neil Campbell bought and rebuilt the distillery in 1876. He sold the distillery to his whiskey agents, John and Alexander McKell, but they were bankrupt by 1887. In 1888, it was acquired by John Hopkins and Company, who ran it for 28 years. It was sold in 1916 to Distillers Company, who today is Diageo. They ran it until 1930 and then mothballed it for another 40 years. In 1972, the newly formed Ledaig Tobermory Distillery Company got it running again, but they too were bankrupt by 1975. In 1978, Kirk Leavington Property Company owned the distillery and made a bad decision. They sold their warehouses as flats and no longer have a place to age their whiskey on the Isle of Mull. In 1991, the old established company Burn Stewart Distillers now own the distillery. Even though Burn Stewart has gone through a couple of changes in ownership, it appears that Tobermory finally has some stability and a future. The Tobermory Visitor Centre does both tastings and tours 7 days a week. There are 4 whiskies in the Tobermory Ledaig core range, as well as some new special releases to try before purchasing. The unpeated Tobermory whiskies and the peated Ledaig range are not the only spirits produced at the distillery. In 2019, Tobermory started to distill a gin that has a splash of whiskey new make added before the maceration. The newly refurbished distillery has a new stainless steel mash tun that holds 9.5 tons of barley grist. The first 2 mash cycles go to the washbacks, and the third is recycled into the next mash. The 4 new 50,000-liter Oregon pine washbacks are filled to 33,000 liters where the yeast is added, and they will ferment from 60 to 100 hours. The hanging soap cups prevent the wash from foaming over the top. The 2 outside wash stills are charged to 16,500 liters, and the 2 inside spirit stills are unique in having a larger charge of 16,700 liters. This is due to a longer distillation time for more copper contact. The new make spirit is around 68% ABV, and the filling strength is around 63.5% ABV. Due to the lack of warehouse space, the bulk of the Tobermory and Ledaig casks are matured in the Deanston warehouses. Tobermory is 130 miles or 4 hours or longer by car from Glasgow, depending on the ferry schedule between Oban and Craignier on the Isle of Mull. From Oban, it is an hour ferry crossing to Craignier, then it is a 35-minute drive by car or an hour by bus to Tobermory. Well, welcome back. For those that watched the presentation, I sure hope you enjoyed it. And for those that scrolled ahead, we're going to get right into this review. So, the nose. right off the bat. Lots of fruit and toffee. Fruit and toffee, honey, Mazuka honey, and maybe fireweed honey, maybe a little more fireweed, kind of spicy. And the spices, cinnamon and some ginger, and getting on cherry licorice, and a lot of floral notes going on here. But I am going to move on to the palate. Okay, Slàinte Mhath. Boy, lots of sherry. Very strong sherry influence here. But that brings on chocolate. It brings on the coffee notes. There is a slight bit of tobacco going on, but there is sweetness. We're getting the cinnamon. I mentioned the cinnamon and ginger notes there, and a bit of orange going on, and it's more like a mandarin orange. I have some, I'm going to say it's like a sweet pork. The toffee mixed in with the fruit. Sweet, sour, a little bit of bitter, very slight. Pretty impressive. I am going to go on for the development and the finish. Slàinte Mhath. This has got a longer finish. Very heavy on the chocolate, dark chocolate. And some Christmas notes. So I'm getting a little bit of fruitcake, but it's that when you're mixing the rum, or in some cases, I know they mix scotch with the fruitcake as well. But that's what I'm tasting. And I'm definitely still getting a wee bit of the tobacco, but there's also some of the wood starting to show now. But it's really it's hanging on the tongue, the palate there. So it is a longer finish. And I think we are going to add some water to this. We've put, the equivalent of a couple of drops from the metal straw. You can control it a lot more with this, that's for sure. We'll see. I think this can handle a few drops. So with water, the palate, Slàinte Mhath. Honey, berry, apple crisp. Lots of toffee. I'm going to say sultana cookies. Shortbread. A little bit of malty stuff showed up. Oh, the fudge hasn't left. Delicious. Certainly it gives you some perspective of what you can do. You start off without the water. Now we've transitioned into the water. So we've gone from like the sweet, sour, umami notes, a little bit of bitter, and now we're getting into the sweet. So very interesting. Certainly it's great that you can actually go through that transition and add a few drops of water. But so, this is one of those that I'm going to highly recommend. Again, it has a wide appeal. Not as popular as a Bunnahabhain, or a Deanston, but it's something that I think you could certainly pour a dram of this to most of your company and they're going to appreciate it. But at the price of $300 here in Canada, it might be out of your budget. So that's what you have to consider. If $300 isn't out of your budget, I highly recommend this. It's one of those things that's on a fine line between, does it make sense For me it does. I'm a reviewer, I'm a Scotch connoisseur, a collector, but not for everyone. So I'm going to leave that one with you. If you're someone like me, yes, you're probably going to go out and get a bottle. This was a gift, by the way. It was given to me as a gift, but probably somewhere down the road I probably would have purchased it. It's an 88, 89. That's where I'm going to leave it. So on that note, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, and do not drink and drive. Until the next time, Slàinte Mhath.